Good morning, good evening, good afternoon, wherever you are in the world. This is John with Tommy's Top Picks here to bring you your weekly Flesh and Blood market update. This week we have both some financial news and some interesting market news for Fab and some weird, secondary sales and stuff like that going on. So let's jump in. We'll talk about it all and dig into the numbers. And let's get in there. Let's see what's happening. Let's start off with Tails, down 11.63% to $43 a box from 48. This is Tails Unlimited boxes. Whatever. This thing has been bouncing around low for a while. This is, I don't know if it's an all-time low, but it's definitely a local low. Let's see real quick. Anything back here? Yeah, maybe an all-time low in all my tracking at least, which would probably be an all-time low because I think, this is probably an all-time low for Tails. Is that crazy? I don't know. Unlimited, it's really, so this is what I'll say. I think it's crazy because there's fair indication that they burned a lot of unlimited tails. So these boxes are probably rarer than they seem. That said, I don't know for sure. It's such a convoluted thing. I do want to talk about that a little bit. In fact, let's just jump into it here because it's a good time to talk about it. There's discussion about releasing the print numbers or not. Apparently in Queensland, I think it's called Queensland. I got it wrong last time. Someone corrected me in my comments, and now I can't remember what they corrected it to. Whatever. In that celebrational they did, James was talking to people about how things are being handled with print run numbers and releasing the numbers. There was a discussion. It was actually pretty good on the, I think it's Chadcast. Sloop Dupe, Fabled Hunter Saint, and Staxwell, the man Staxwell. They were all talking about that, and something that came up was, do you want the numbers released or not? I think they generally said yes, just because, but I don't think they were considering all the implications. It was an on-the-spot question, so I get that. I was kind of yes in the yes camp initially too when I first thought about it, but the more I thought about it, the more I was like, probably not the best. Because we have seen decline prices on boxes. We've seen that it's not able to hold map. We've seen a lot of weakness in the market over time. And if the print numbers were drastically cut, like if we're talking, we're back to like 100K, 75K, 50K, whatever. I don't, obviously supplementals versus, draft sets, etc. That's a bit concerning if it was drastically cut and we're still seeing weakness in prices, right? That becomes a very detrimental thing to see to the marketplace. So that said, is that the case? We don't know. I'm not trying to spread FUD. It's just one of those things. I could see why James may hesitate because it could be seen as a bad thing even if the numbers and transparency is there. On the opposite side of it, some people may see those numbers and go ballistically hype and buy a bunch of boxes. So there's a trade-off. But initially I was like, yeah, data's good, transparency's good. And then I thought about it more as like if I was the business owner and, that's a concern. I could see that concern. So anyways, this is one of my thoughts when I saw that, conversation between the three. Pretty good. I would check it out. I believe it's on Sloop Dupe channel. It's the Chadcast thing, and it had some really interesting information. Good conversation for the most part. They were a little, I would say, a little bit weird when it came to the MetaZoo thing. It's like, guys, yeah, take it down a notch. It's fine. It's dead. It's been dead for a while. There's no need to talk about sucking cocks and stuff, and I just thought that was a little over the top. But that's my opinion and my take. Anyways, moving on. First edition boxes Crew up 8.9% to 470 from 428. Pretty cool. I will say there's some strange sales activity here. In fact, let's just go ahead and jump over to it. I set this up as part of the, how I review the cards. We're at several boxes selling within the last few weeks. I'm curious if one of the things, oh, you can't see this, can you? Oh, yeah, you can. Yeah. One of the things that came up in the conversation between Fluke and James White was that there was some other sets possibly, or it was kind of mentioned casually that, Everfest wasn't the only set that they sent to the shredder. So I'm curious what other stuff they had sitting in warehouses that they sent to the shredder. Now, Do I think it's crew? No. Especially first edition? No, I really don't. But there may be some sort of conversations that were happening, things like that, that triggered, people that collect and are concerned with these sorts of things to go ahead and buy, because we have a lot of buys. Well, a lot relative to historically. I guess it wasn't that many, but a few in this month, which we haven't seen a lot of upward pressure on this product in a long time. So it's kind of cool to see it jump, from a 418, 407 actually low up to 460 plus 10 shipping. That's pretty good. I think something's happening with crew. Either the supply is just running out, rumors about the actual supply that's available is different. Maybe there was a reserve they're holding back for a special event. I don't know. It felt like it might be rumor related. Maybe it's just natural market. But whenever you have a big get together with a lot of collectors at an event like that, word spreads and people do things. So that's all. I was looking at that and I thought that was interesting. Moving on, Everfest has reclined. Yeah, sure. It's sitting in its lazy boy chair. It's reclined back to its 59 price point that it was 2 weeks ago. Nothing special there. We talked about how the spike may not hold. We have seen two of these spikes. Reversion to the mean down to the 59 mark is actually a good sign, because it was previously 46. I'm visualizing it in my head, and I will show the chart too. But basically what you're seeing is knocking on the door, going up, and then declining less. That's the word I was looking for. Declining, not reclining. Declining less than it did previously, which is a good sign. That's typically an upward pressure kind of market signal. So still wait it out. Let's see. Obviously, some macro trends are still in play, but I do have some news on that might be interesting to you. And Everfest looks like a pretty solid buy. I mean, for the cards alone, what's in the boxes, and at these prices, honestly, I think Everfest is a fairly reasonable thing to hold on to grab at this price. I mean, the value at this price is, I would say it's undervalued just based on the things we now know. It's a fairly rare set, fourth rare set, I believe they said, because Unlimited is gone and we know it's playable, so it fits the player's market narrative. It has a lot of things going for it, and I'm actually surprised this hasn't boomed more quickly. But that's fine. Don't spend money on things that you can't afford. Definitely only money you're willing to throw away. These are cards. These are high-risk assets, and none of this is financial advice. Take care of your family and what you need to take care of first. Do not go into debt for cardboard. That is a ridiculously silly thing to do. Moving on, Uprising up 10.39% to $77 from $69. We've seen it in this price range before, but it has broken through its previous resistance level at $70 a box, so that's pretty good. I think we're seeing a similar pattern to what's happened with Everfest. Again, this makes me feel like maybe there's rumors. I know someone said something, maybe it was in that interview I was just describing, about how 2.0 has less boxes than thought. I think maybe the market was just soft and it was received softly, and maybe it's actually a lower supply than people thought, and word is getting around that Uprising is basically vanishing. I don't know if that's actually true. I would have to look at distro, and unfortunately the distro I use stopped listing, and it's not direct distro, but you get the idea. Stopped listing Fab because there's just so few sales. It was a bit of a problem, so I have to go through catalogs and see what's available, and it doesn't necessarily say if it's available or not. Sorry, I had to take a sip of coffee. All right, let's see what else we got. We got two honorable mentions. Outsiders up 4.48% and Evo up 4.3%. Pretty cool that Evo jumped on the boxes. Did not expect that to happen so soon. Now, granted, it's going back to where it was, 2 weeks ago, but still, an upward movement is upward movement on a set that's basically, Boredomville right now. We're in the worst time for these sorts of sets. So that's fantastic, actually. Also interesting to note that Dynasty and Dusk Till Dawn have basically been holding in this 80 range for the past 3 weeks for Dusk Till Dawn, and for quite some time for Dynasty. The supplemental sets, I assume, were printed less. I'm guessing this is a supply situation that they're actually holding at the 80 mark. Dusk Till Dawn, it's got to just be the hype, right? Let me know in the comments if you have a reason to believe that, why Dusk Till Dawn is holding above all other boxes. It just, to me, it doesn't make sense from a market standpoint. It should be in the downward boredom pressure period. I know the Prism weapon, drives some stuff, but the Angels aren't exactly hard to come by. So is that it? I mean, it's crazy. It's kind of cool. I like to see it, but we'll see how this goes. It does make me want to keep an eye on this whole block here because these 2.0s, I think we're in for a surprise in the market. I don't know what it is, and this is where it's like, if I knew the number, I would be better able to judge what the thought process could be from James White and why he wants to or doesn't want to release the numbers. But I'm thinking that maybe the number is pretty low. He is worried about the negative criticism, the number in 2.0. He's worried about the negative criticism he'll receive for the box prices slipping so low with such a low print run. Granted, that would probably boom them in this case because they are already seeing an upward pressure. I think we're at kind of a decent pacing. I've said this before, 2, 3, and then 4 and 5 year periods are fine by me for a set if you want cards to stay playable and affordable for players, which is a goal they've clearly stated. Yeah, you could have history packs in there. I know that someone brought that up in the comments. That was a good point. But the problem with history packs, I don't know how many people have opened. I've opened a few. They just give you the same chaff over and over again, at least History Pack 1 US. It's not a good solution, in my opinion. I know what it's trying to do, and I think it's valuable for the rarer cards, but the reality is the rarer cards are super rare, just like they are in the regular boxes, and those are the only things anyone actually cares about. The other cards they print really aren't that important. And this is, again, for the US, who's had boxes the whole time, who's had too many boxes in some cases the whole time. So from that standpoint, I don't think history packs are the answer. But maybe they are. Maybe they end up being the answer if these print runs are actually lower than, we think, and they go out in 2 years or 3 years. Say we get into a new hype cycle, right? I could see where the high sell-through rate burns a product off the shelf in 2 years. And that would be a problem, right? So then you have to have a history pack kind of solution. I just don't see it the way it's structured now. Maybe there's a better product release. I think they even said something about these in-between products, which me and Tommy went on and on about, as a way to help manage the secondary market. And that could be like your Dorinthia versus Reinhardt boxes where they have one thing that's actually special and valuable in there, but it also gives you the cards that are commonly used by those heroes in a reasonable chunk of them, right? For a reasonable price. That may be a good solution, especially with a 4-deck set, if like they did with Tolarian College. If they do that on multiple fronts, that may be the right fit. That might be the right thing, where it's like, you take key heroes, maybe weak heroes, you pump them with some new stuff, you put out generics and things that are valuable and useful and probably a little overpriced in the market, right, to help cool those prices down. And then and it could be a CC product, it could be whatever. CC would probably be the easiest and best to do, but I could see it being another number of things, UPF, etc. But that could be how they're planning to experiment this year to see what they can do to reduce the secondary value. Now, the real question is, does that change the box values? It will a little bit, but how much? I mean, it really depends on how much any particular boxes hit on an EV front, because that typically is what drives the prices at the end of the day, right? Anyways, moving on down to the first edition cases, there's really nothing to report here except that Evo came down 13.39%, which is a pretty big deal, to 224. Well, okay, it's a pretty big drop. It's not a big deal. It's a very minor deal because, like we were saying, Evo is boring right now, right? This is stores dumping cases to get them off the shelf to make room for heavy hitters coming in, right? Nothing special here. This happens every time. Nothing crazy. So really not too worried about it. It's actually kind of interesting, this Evo versus non-Evo thing. I did want to talk about a couple things in markets, just because I know I bring up macro environment a lot, and there's reason to believe we're in a weirdly positive situation. Now, take all of this with a grain of salt, take it all with a news spin cycle clickbait world that we're in. But here's some data points. Corporate bond demand is up. which is a place where people would be that's stable and trustworthy, but not necessarily as stable as bonds. That means it's kind of pushing towards a risk-on environment. Not fully, right? It's a toe in the water sort of situation where corporate bonds would usually be reduced a little bit in a risk-off environment as you flee to government bonds, which are safer. But corporate bonds seem to be the place where people are resting now. Demand is up, which is interesting. There is a really interesting concern around the debt of the U.S., which is, there's all the politics of it. Fuck all that. It's so stupid. The people that talk about it politically literally have no idea what they're talking about. They say we should run the country like a household. Dumbest thing ever. Or a company. Dumbest thing ever. The economics of a country are nothing like a corporation or a household. They're the economics of a freaking country. They're very different. So sorry for that little rant. I just get really upset because people politicize it and then people repeat this stupid crap and they literally have no idea what they're talking about. And the people that they're listening to have no idea what they're talking about. And it makes me so crazy. And because people just like jump on it and froth. They get super angry and passionate about something they literally have never spent 2 seconds looking into because it's very easy to look into it. But that said, there is a very interesting historic pattern, and that's what I like to use, history of economics and how it's actually been applied in real life and what actually happens in real life with real numbers and real money instead of fake, arguments, is that historically we did not believe it was a good idea to go above 90% debt to GDP ratio. This is just something that's been one of those rules of thumbs of economics for a long time. For the longest time, anyone that went over 90 got into this crazy spiral and ended up imploding. This was like pre-World War II kind of time frame. Now, and this was concerning in a thing, now we're at a point where for some reason, and this is the change, spiraling debt is not happening when breaking or breaching that 90% threshold. It's getting to a point where we're seeing multiple countries hold debt at high numbers. Japan's at 200% and has been for like decades. Well, that's probably unfair. It's not decades, years we'll say, but has been high over the 90% mark for a long time. And Italy is at 140%, and neither of them are seeing any issue generating bond demand. Neither of them are seeing any issue economically. Now, does that mean it can go to 1,000%? No, of course, right? There is a line. Where is that line? We don't know anymore. It used to be 90% because we had economic data that said that and showed that. It is clearly not 90% anymore. Either that or the entire global economic system is about to collapse, and I don't see that happening. It just isn't real. And while some people will scream that every day, all day, just to be right the one time they are right, it's really not realistic to consider that a possibility at this point. Those two countries and ours, just for comparison's sake, is at 110%. The real issue there is that because it's such a large number, our debt servicing is so expensive that it's a problem, and that needs to be worked out. One of the big ways to work that out is interest rate reduction over time, which is happening soon, it sounds like, and some financial stuff that is underway as far as growth, etc. Basically, what we're at right now is a high debt area. Now, could this be bad? Here's where it can be bad, and here's where caution is worthy and discussion is worthy instead of just political talking points. If there's another COVID, if there's another economic catastrophe like 9/11 sort of thing, like a black swan unexpected event that causes a massive fear in all markets situation, which does have housing crisis, another example, banking screws up again. Which I don't think will happen. We've had some good tests, actual real life tests, not just stress tests recently, and it's held up. If some of those things, one of those things happens unexpectedly in the near term before we grow out of the debt structure we're in, then it becomes onerous and difficult to raise more debt to deal with it. That said, in an event that has a global shaking consequence like that, guess where the rest of the world's money flows? It flows to U.S. bonds because it's the safest place to be. So the U.S. would probably fare fine. Italy and Japan would probably have a very difficult time. So this is one of those things that's a very tricky, confidence, fear, when do people stop trusting? How far does trust go? These sorts of things are mushy topics that are not very financial, or very financial, but not very empirical. And so it gets to be very questionable space. That's actually my favorite space in economics because it's where human behavior, monkeys and trees, basically, and financial literacy and empirical data all come together to see exactly how silly we are. And we are silly when it comes to money. I don't know if you realize that, but you're on a card channel talking about finance. So yeah, we're silly when it comes to money. All right. A couple other things I did want to point out. One of the indicators why I don't think these are dire numbers that are concerning and we should all, go in our bunkers or whatever. Consumer confidence is up in every demographic except for people that make 120K or more. They just did the survey. It just came out. I think it was Monday, Tuesday, whatever. Crazy. Like, confidence is up across the board, across political affiliation. They sliced and diced it a bunch of different ways. Basically, the only area that isn't is people that are making a lot of money a year, and I guess have probably been comfortable the whole time. So maybe their confidence never went down. That part I didn't check out. It might be worth figuring that out to see if the reason it's not up like everyone else is because it was up the whole time. We've talked about this in the past, how the people that are exposed to stocks and that sort of thing, did not feel the pain as much as others because their stock market, portfolios kept going up and et cetera. I mean, we've had a banner year, we've seen record indices, et cetera. So that said, it's an interesting state to say the consumer confidence is up. That drives a lot. It is a cornerstone. I saw this thing the other day. It had a three legs of macroeconomics, I think is how they framed it. It was what was it? Consumer spending, I think is how they framed it. Not confidence, but confidence is indicative of spending. Interest rates and housing were the three pillars that they put together. I would disagree with that from a macro standpoint, but it's a pretty good framework. And, if consumer confidence is good, right, we have indication that interest rates are probably going to come down sometime this year, right? The Fed has specifically said that. Speaking of, Fed chair speaks today, FOMC meeting. I don't think he speaks today. I think it's just the meeting notes come out. I am a day before you are hearing this, so it will be out by the time you hear this. Probably worth checking out, see what they say. My guess is that they are not necessarily moving to interest rates in March, which is kind of where they previously indicated. They didn't say March specifically, but they indicated it would be earlier part of the year. I think because the state of the world, the increased spending, et cetera, they may hold off a little bit longer before they reduce, but I'm not sure. We'll find out. And then the housing market is starting to actually see some decline on pricing a little bit. It's minor, and it's not going to happen for very long because unfortunately we allow investment bankers to buy vast amounts of family housing, which is just terrible. And I'm an investor, so it's not good. Anyways, one other thing that I thought was interesting in an election year, if January is an up month, which today is the 31st for me, it's the 1st for you, and it is an up month. As of the last look at the markets, it was 11% up. It has been historically 100% predictor of an up year. The whole year is positive economically if January is in an election year. And it's something with the correlation of the momentum of economics, the work that people have done to get things in a good place, basically for the election, right, are suddenly coming to bear fruit, and it starts to make its way into the system as a whole, which you could see. There's some infrastructure bills. There's several projects that have been funded, CHIP Act, all that stuff, which are probably hitting the markets in real time, hitting people's wallets. The workers, the construction workers, the things like that are probably now actually starting to see the results of some of this economic policy. 100% accuracy, though. If January is up, then the rest of the year is up, and on average, it's up by 15%. So that is something worth taking to the bank, in my opinion. But none of this is financial advice. All right, let's jump into the charts. I have rambled long enough. What did we want to look at? I don't really care about tails. Let's look at crew. Crew's going to be boring. Nothing much there. let's go ahead and look at Uprising and Everfest. Yeah, Everfest is going to be good. Let's see what Everfest says. Oh, interesting. How fun. All right, so we can see, yeah, we're knocking on the door up here. We're on a general upward trend, just following this trend line. Oops, sorry. Following this trend line. And box cases, yeah, generally holding up. So this is, it looks like front level demand based on the case divided by 4 price action, and then the box price action is doing the step ladder, which is not uncommon for an upward gain. I do think we're starting to see the beginning of the next level for EVR. I do think what we're going to see is, there'll be instability, there'll be volatility, and if the macro turns sour, which is very possible, then obviously we'll see downward pressure on this. But given that all the things I just said about the macro environment kind of cooling into a more positive state, and then, if consumer confidence up, if people are spending money, then this is a place where they might spend money. And so, yeah, I could see the step laddering up and maybe moving after ARC and that sort of thing. I don't know if it would go that high, but it could have that sort of upward pressure. So that's pretty cool. And then what was the other one we wanted to look at? Uprising? Yeah, Uprising seems fun. So this is our first... Ooh, that's not it. Oh, it's up here. This is our first 2.0 product. Man, I wish I had more sophisticated charting stuff. I would zoom out on this. I'd want to see the whole picture. This is a good sign, though. I mean, it's early days. We talked about it here. Like, give it a second, but then it jumped again. The case price lag actually is a bit concerning. That does make it feel like hype. $7 ARB opportunity isn't worth doing anything about. Let's see how this goes. If we see a continual climb and we get to kind of the 80s, 90s range, yeah, if we break 80 and kind of sit in that 80 to 90 range, and the cases don't go up, then I would say this is probably a fake out and probably not worth holding on to. But if the cases do start pulling in that direction, then I think we're in for a real macro upswing on UPR. And if that occurs, then it starts to give us an indication on timing of 2.0 products, print run idea. That whole thing starts to come together and coalesce, as opposed to it feeling like it's overprinted, which it has felt for some time, being under map and that sort of thing. It starts to feel, if we get back to map, like if we're really holding 85 plus, which I believe is kind of like the map range. I don't know the timing to knock it to 30%, whatever, all that stuff. 85 is map in my mind. If we get and hold in that range, that looks good. That looks good, because Uprising is not that old. And it wasn't like the bomb of a set, like the best thing ever. It was a good change of pace. Things were looking good. The print runs felt like too much up until recently, and maybe this is our timing, which would be a good timing. If you think back to when Uprising came out versus today, like, that's a good time to see the boxes start to swing around and not be that big of a deal, because people have had tons of time to get a hold of them, right? I like the way that feels. If that's the case, I'm feeling pretty good about my seal collection and the rest of it. All right, only other thing I wanted to show is Marvels are starting to pop up for heavy hitters. Dang it, I hate when that filter takes up part of the screen, and if I move it, so annoying. Yeah, anyways, let's see if I can adjust this. There we go. Now it doesn't cut off. All right, yeah, so these are starting to hit. Obviously, pre-sale numbers. Do not pay these prices unless you absolutely must. For the shelf, for the love of it, that's fine. If that's your thing, I get it. I've done it. I still hold the second highest purchase on Tumultai, so I will take that record to the grave again. I needed it for my shelf, so I understand. I've been there. Point being, these are going to come down, so expect them to come down. And how long it takes, I mean, the interesting thing is some of them could shoot up because they may be harder to pull, or take a while to get to market, or fan favorites like Kasai. When that happens, that does drive markets up. But overall, remember, Think how long it's been since Uprising. That's how long you'll probably have to open heavy hitters. So there's plenty of time for the market to cool off, let these things come down. So I wouldn't go nuts on it right away. The FOMO is real. Don't buy into it. You'll be okay. I promise. I do love that they changed off of these. So yeah. Oh, that was another piece of news, which it came up. It was mentioned somewhere. I don't know how real it was, but apparently these were a mistake. The Evo prints, these Evo Marvels, they weren't Marvels and they knew it. They found out at the last minute, and it was either pull the whole product line and not get it to customers, or deal with the Marvels not being Marvels. So this is not what they were supposed to be like. It makes me really sad because I bet they were awesome. It's like really stupid that these exist. It makes me really sad. I wish they had like a program where you could trade in for the real Marvel or something. I mean, that's so expensive. Like, please don't do that, LSS. But it's just like, oh, I hate that these are on here as Marvels and they're clearly not Marvels, right? I complained about it the whole time. So it was a mistake. It was a printer mistake, which just that. Thank God, because I was like, what are you doing? You're diluting Marvels. And that's not what happened. It sounds like it was just a printer mistake. Man, I wish these were Marvels now. I want to see what the real ones were because they would be awesome. Oh well, just my little corner of the market. All right, that is it for this week's market update. I hope you guys enjoyed it. Click the subscribe and like. Oh, I'm terrible at this stuff. Anyways, hope you're out there cracking packs, playing games, and enjoying this hobby that we love. Until next time, have a good one.